Hi all. So we are going to look at lecture 6 of our course EC312 Object-Oriented Programming. We are continuing with Java programming. So in lecture 6 we are going to look at interfaces. Um, an interface is a blueprint of the class with methods and variables. A blueprint means like an interface have the same type of declaration as that of a class, that it has methods and variables. But the difference is these methods and variables are abstract. Means the methods are abstract and the variables are final, or the variables are like a constant. The methods interface don't have a body. They have to be implemented by the class before you can access them. So basically whatever method is there declared inside the interface doesn't have a body. So whichever class implements this interface needs to define that method. So the class that implements the interface must implement all the methods of that interface. So if there are two methods and if a class implements that method interface, then the two methods should be implemented by the class. So you can implement more than one interface in your class. Using hybrid interface, you can implement multiple. Using interface, you can implement multiple and hybrid inheritance. So let's look at the syntax. So if you look at the syntax, it is interface space interface name. There's a variable declaration, there's a method declaration. So it is similar to that of a class. So that's why it is called as a blueprint, because if the interface is replaced by class, it is the same syntax of that of a class. But the difference comes here, that the interface variable declaration should be static final. So that there will be some data type for the variable, for example int or float or something, the variable name equal to value. So this is like a final variable. The value of this variable cannot be changed. And interface method declaration like is return type, method name, and in bracket the parameter list. So here you should be careful that you will not define, so there won't be a body for the method. You will not define what the method is, you will just declare the method, that's all. As an example, if you look at this interface item, so we have the interface as the keyword, which is declares as interface, and the name of the interface is called as item. You have declared two variables, one is called as code, another is called as name. The code is of int, but it is of static final, so you are making it a constant value 1001. The name is also a string data type, you are making a constant fan. So if you look at code and name, they are static final, which means, as we have seen in the previous lecture, that you cannot change the values of code and name. And the method that you declare is normal function or method declaration, where you say there is a return type, there is a name for the method, if there are input arguments, there will be input argument inside the brackets. And this method doesn't have a body, like you would declare it as it is. You don't put a curly braces and say, okay, this is what the method does. So this is a simple method declaration. So the interface has the following things. Now, just like classes, you can extend the interface. So in class, you see that when you want to inherit one class from other, you say class name extends the superclass name. Similarly, you can extend the interface from another interface. So for example, name1 is an interface. You can extend name1 to name2 using interface name2 extends name1. So name1 is the super interface and name2 is the sub interface. But sub interfaces cannot define the methods declared in the super interface. So in super interface, you might have declared some methods. For example, in the last example, there is a void display. You cannot define, means you cannot create a method inside name2 and says, okay, inside void display, this should be what the body is. You cannot do that. This should, even the name2 interface should also obey the rules of interface, which means you should only have static final variables and it should have methods which is declared. So there's an example we can look at, like we can put all constants in one interface and methods in other, and you can extend the method interface with that constant interface, or you can also possible to combine all interfaces together into a single interface. So that's the two examples we have. In the example one, you can see that the interface item constant has only constant declarations. So you should have final here, final encode 1001 and final string name fan, and then in item interface you are extending it from item constants, and you say there is only a method which is void display. So this is the sub interface and this is the super interface. In example 2, if you look at this, in interface item constant you have two variables or two member variables. In interface item method there is one method, and these two are independent, like there is no extension of item methods from item constant. But you can define a third interface which is called as item, and you can extend it from item constant and item methods. So once you extend, it is basically you are inheriting the properties of both interfaces. So you can get the values or use the variables of item constant and use the method of item methods in the item. So let's look at implementing interface. So how can we relate a class to an interface? And the answer is using the implements keyword. So a class can inherit an interface using implements keyword. So you say class name, and you say implements the interface name, and you have the normal body of the class. A class can also extend from another class and implement multiple interfaces. So for example, in the syntax you see class name, you are extending it from a superclass, and you are implementing interface 1, interface 2, and you can have n number of interfaces inside the normal body of the class. So when you when you implement an interface in a class, the constant value of the interface is directly accessible inside the class. So if there was one constant value in interface, like in the previous example we had in the code, so you can directly write here code equal to, or you can use the code, like if code equal to this much, you can do this one. So you can directly access the constant value. So let's look at a complete example. So we have an interface called as area, and area is declared as an interface with final static floating variables pi, which is 3.14f, and there is a function called as compute, which takes into input arguments x and y. So this is a constant value pi. This is a abstract method where there is no body defined for this method inside the interface. And there are two classes. First class is called rectangle, another class is called circle, and both classes implements the interface area. So both class now has the interface area. So since it implements the interface area in both the classes, you should define the method which is declared inside the interface. So inside the interface you have declared the method compute. So that method should be defined, means there should be a body for that method inside both the classes. So you have defined in rectangle class compute x comma y. So you should note that the declaration should be same as that of that in interface. So compute float x comma float y, then you return the value of x into y. Circle, again same declaration that of interface, float compute float x comma float y, and then you return pi into x square, x into x, which is basically the area of the circle. So here if you look, you are not using y, but you still need to declare it because you are implementing from interface, and interface has the method declared like float x comma float y. So if you look at the main function, so there is a class called as interface test in which you have implemented the main method. So you have created two objects, each for rectangle and circle. So the object for rectangle is called rect, and object for circle is called as CIR, sir. Since you have an interface called as area, you need to create an object for area. So area space area with a small a. When you say area equal to rect, now the area refers to the object of rectangle, which is rect. And when you say area dot compute, which is using the object of interface, when you say dot compute, now it refers to the compute method implemented in the class rectangle. Okay, so this you can do only because you have assigned interface, or you are referring the interface using the rect object. Okay, now you change the interface object. Now interface object now refers to CIR, which is basically an object of circle. So now when you do area.compute, you are now referring to the compute method in the class circle. Okay, so you have changed the reference here. Here the reference was for rectangle class, and you accessed the method of compute. Next step, you have changed the reference to circle, and you have accessed the method in the circle. So these are the basic thing about interfaces. You can implement hybrid method, hybrid inheritance and multiple inheritance again. And these are some of the questions that you can look upon to understand the lecture better. Thank you.